Welcome to Podnutz Daily for December 4th, 2008, episode number 116. I think I want to call this episode, Don't Bend the Cables. It should be called Don't Bend the Ribbons. But here's what happens. This might have happened to you guys, maybe not. I hope it doesn't happen to you because it's a pain in the neck. When you're taking apart a laptop, a lot of times things are connected in the laptop through ribbon cables. Like the mouse pad attaches to the motherboard through a ribbon cable. Or some of the buttons, the power buttons, are attached to the motherboard or another board through a ribbon cable. Well, what happens is when you take a laptop apart, you got to usually pull the ribbon cables out of like a connector. Sometimes they snap in. Sometimes there's some kind of fastening device. Sometimes they have a little blue piece of plastic on the end of them, which is rigid, and you use that blue plastic to push the ribbon cable into the connector, the receptacle where it's supposed to be. The problem is, a lot of times it's hard to get leverage to push down on these cables without actually bending the cable. And when you bend the cable too much, like more than a 90-degree angle, you run the risk of breaking the connections inside the cable, which has happened to me maybe 3 or 4 times now, and it's really a pain in the neck. So just as a warning, when you're taking apart laptops and you have a particular type of cable where you have to push it in to a connector on the motherboard or on the device, rather than snapping it in or using some kind of locking mechanism, try not to push down and bend the cable at like more than a 90-degree angle and kind of smush it into the connector, thinking that, oh, if I just push it real hard this one time, it's not going to hurt it. It happened to me on a Sony Vaio laptop today. Luckily, I had another cable, very, very luckily, I could use for this. Otherwise, I would have had to order a cable for the person. Because these ribbon cables are so delicate, you could do a miraculous soldering job on it if you're good enough, but most of the times you're going to have to get a new cable. So be careful when you're working with ribbon cables and laptops and other things. Don't bend them. Don't fold them. That's basically it. Not bending them, folding them. You don't want them folded because they will break, and you're going to wonder why something's not working, and everything looks fine on the outside, but the connection's actually broken on the inside. Okay, I had a Dell laptop I talked about yesterday. It's an Inspiron 1100. And I had it, we basically had to get so much dust out of the thing that it was pretty much a mess in there. The thing has been abused, pretty bad, physical abuse, and there was tons of dust in it. We cleaned everything out, and as I'm putting everything, like the cover and the keyboard back on, I was shaking the computer because I heard a little bit of a jingling inside the computer. Well, I took the keyboard off, shook it some more, and a little piece of metal jingled out. And I could not for the life of me find out what this little piece of metal was for. Everything looked fine. All the devices looked fine. All the connectors looked fine. Everything was attached. And then a little black piece of plastic came following along with it. So I got those 2 pieces out, inspected them, looked at them, did not know where the heck they go, it's just a surprise for me because I've taken apart these laptops so many times and I should know this by now, and put the whole thing back together. Definitely, if you hear any metal jingling in a laptop, don't turn it on. Get it out because it could be laying on the motherboard on a spot you don't want it to lay on and wreak havoc with your motherboard. We're talking about very erratic or strange behavior. Could be shorting out spots on the motherboard. So if you hear anything jingling, go with your gut instinct. Open up the laptop and get whatever's flipping around in there out. Just in case it's metal or just in case it's something that could get jammed in a fan, you want it out of there. Anyway, I put the whole laptop back together. The thing was working great. You know, I called the customer, said, your laptop's ready to be picked up. It's working fine. She goes, oh, yeah, there's one more thing. My son told me to ask me to have you check his headphones. When he tries to put headphones in, no sound comes out. And I said, oh, I didn't check that. Let me check it now. So I looked at the laptop, and lo and behold, the whole headphone jack was completely missing from the side panel on the computer. You couldn't even plug headphones in, which would be the mysterious piece that fell out. It strangely did not look like a headphone jack when it came out, but it was probably because it was in so many pieces. But that's what it was. So now that at least I know, have some peace of mind, I know what that is. Moral of the story: if anything's jingling in your laptop, get it out of there. If anybody has any suggestions for if you have set up a limited account in XP, meaning not an administrator. And if anybody has any suggestions for if you're in safe mode, this happened twice with my dad anyway. I haven't done it myself, but he does a lot of the virus cleanup, so this happens to him. check, when you're in safe mode, those limited accounts don't appear in safe mode. Maybe it's just my or his imagination. Maybe we're doing something wrong. But if anybody knows an easy way to make limited accounts appear in safe mode, instead of actually having to go in normal mode, make those accounts administrators, then go back in safe mode, then you're able to see them, that would be nice. Timster says he's had that problem too in the chat room. Open to suggestions on that one, guys. That's a call for help. Okay, here's another disastrous pain in the neck job. Had a customer come in, a customer who likes to talk inanely, like I mentioned yesterday. And this particular customer brought in a desktop computer. And this is the second time in, because the first time when she took it home, it wasn't working, so she had to bring it back. And what we did on the second time, we did a complete reinstall of this operating system. I mean, we wiped it, we took her data, put it on an external spot, wiped the drive, put everything back, and fine. Her main thing was she just wanted to be able to use her camera and look at her pictures. She had a digital camera. We set that all up. Everything was fine. She took it home, called up, upset. I'm not coming in for a third time. My mouse isn't working now. It goes to the top of the screen. My keyboard's not working, and I don't want to bring it in again. It's a heavy computer, and this is not good. And she kind of went off on us, which I hate when that happens, because I don't want to have any bad publicity for my shop out there. I want my customers to be happy. Anyway, I called her. She left a message. That was on her message, a Skype message. We called her back, finally got a hold of her, and what the problem was, and also the reason I'm bringing this up, she has a USB mouse and keyboard. And when we're at the shop working, if it has a PS2 connector, we use a PS2 mouse and keyboard to set up these systems. This has happened more than one occasion. It would be a wise thing to ask a customer if they're bringing a desktop in or taking a desktop home, if they use a USB mouse or keyboard. Most of the time, when you plug in a USB mouse or keyboard, when you say you do a reinstall of Windows XP, you plug in a Windows mouse or keyboard, Windows has to load before it recognizes those devices and can load drivers for them. Sometimes it can't find a particular driver for them and will make it so they don't work. And that's a rare case, but it happens, and it happened to us today. Person took the computer home, plugged in their USB mouse or keyboard, turned on the computer, and the computer couldn't load the drivers for them. I've solved this in the past by going in the control panel, because sometimes the keyboard works but the mouse doesn't work. You go into the control panel using the keyboard. You got to learn how to use your keyboard here, guys. You can't rely completely on the mouse. Go into the control panel with the keyboard using arrow keys and the tab key and your enter key. And in the control panel, you should see one of the mice or a device with a yellow exclamation mark, a yellow question mark, whatever it is. Click on that device and choose to load the driver automatically. Or like right click on that device or open